Firing people used to terrify me. I hated it. I would procrastinate it. I would keep underperformers on my team for way too long, somehow magically hoping they would turn things around. They never did. And my inability to let people go ended up pulling down the performance of my team until my mentor, Leila Hormozi, taught me her framework for letting people go. She called it manage up or manage out. And when she first told me about it, it sounded too good to be true. Like, it sounded so crazy, I couldn't even believe that it would work. Then I ran it on my team. And over the next 12 months, we ended up having to churn out 75% of the B and C players that I had unknowingly been keeping on my team until 12 months later, I had a team of all A players and finally learned that the manage up or manage out framework was the thing I had been missing all along when it came to building a high performance team. And today, I want to break it down for you step by step. So manage up or manage out. What does this mean? It means that the second there is a performance gap with anyone on your team, you immediately initiate this process, and one of two things is going to happen. Either this person's performance is going to increase, it's going to rise, and they're going to close the performance gap and get back to acceptable performance in the role, that's managing up, or by the exact same process, they are going to realize that they are either unable to close the performance gap or unwilling to. And then, and this is the part I couldn't believe, they will manage themselves out. They will literally quit 9 times out of 10 before you have to fire them. Either way, you end up with the right A player in that role, able to do the job as well as it needs to be done. So manage up or manage out. How does this work? So the second that you see someone on your team underperforming, step one is that you immediately call it out and have a conversation with them. The way that conversation goes sounds something like this. Hey, our expectations for the role are up here. Right now, your performance is down here. Help me understand, where is this gap coming from? And now let's build a game plan to close this gap. Okay, so there's a couple of key pieces in that conversation that we need to double click on. The first is that you have the conversation immediately. Believe me, I get it. It is so uncomfortable to call someone out and draw their attention and offer them that feedback that says, hey, this is unacceptable. And unless we can figure out how to close this gap, we're not going to be able to have you in this role successfully long term. That's an uncomfortable conversation, but it is also our responsibility as leadership to support and coach our teams to close gaps in their performance. Trust me when I say that nobody is self-aware enough to know where their weaknesses, where their blind spots, and where their gaps are. And I have clients coming to me all the time complaining about this team member or that problem child. And the first thing I'll say is, well, have you told them that? And inevitably, there's like uncomfortable silence. Because again, we don't want to. It's uncomfortable to have to tell someone that they're underperforming. But the fact of the matter is, they're not a mind reader. And chances are they're not even aware that they are underperforming in that way. They don't know that their underperformance is frustrating you and might actually cost them their ability to be in the role long term. So our job as leadership is to give our team the opportunity to grow and level up. And they can't do that if we don't clearly paint a picture for where those performance gaps are and what they need to do in order to close those gaps. Even though it's uncomfortable, I genuinely believe these conversations are an act of service because we're giving our team the opportunity to level up, to surprise us, and to earn the right into their role. So that's step number one, is that we do not put it off. Step number two is that we be as clear as possible in what that performance gap is. We can't just say, hey, it's not working out. Hey, we need you to communicate better. Hey, I need you to close at a higher percentage. Hey, I need you to try harder, right? Like there's no clarity there. There's no specificity. There's nothing for that person to work on. So heading into these conversations, we have to do the work to really look at the data and be as clear and tangible and tactical as possible. Because again, without that, our team doesn't have the opportunity to level up and close that gap now that they've been made aware of it. Step number 3 is help me understand. This is such a powerful phrase. Help me understand. Where is this gap coming from? Is it that you lack training? Is it that you are having a really bad month in your personal life and I didn't know about it? Is it that you didn't even know that this was an expectation that was needed in the role and now you do? Help me understand leads with curiosity instead of judgment. Help me understand puts you on the same team. It's not me across the table yelling at you and telling you you have to be better. It's you and I as teammates on the same side of the table, us versus the problem, identifying this problem together and building a game plan together on how you're gonna close this gap now that you're aware of it. It's a collaborative conversation as opposed to a confrontational conversation. And when done well, this actually makes the whole situation way easier, way less uncomfortable, and actually deeply motivating. Because this is a growth coaching session. We're helping our team level up and get better. And if they're perceiving it that way, that we're their teammate, we're their coach, we're there to support them and help them rise, they're gonna be leaving that conversation even more fired up, even more motivated, clear on where the gap is, and excited to get to work closing it. So help me understand is a key phrase. It helps you get on the same side of the table with your teammate and take a lot of the defensiveness and a lot of the ego out of the conversation. And then the fourth step in this conversation is, now that you're clear on the gap, what are you going to do to solve it? Now this is key. Ownership stays with them. It is their gap to close. It is their role to grow and succeed in. It is their responsibility to up level and close this gap. That is absolutely essential, is that they be walking out of this conversation entirely clear that this is my responsibility. This is mine to own. Without that, you're going to be forcing them, pressuring them, pushing them to grow and up level, as opposed to them feeling intrinsically motivated, them feeling excited and driven and understanding that this is their opportunity to rise. So ownership needs to stay with them throughout. This is your gap. Help me understand, where is this coming from? What are you going to do to close this gap? And then what do you need from me as a coach to support you in doing that? And from there, we build a 30-day plan. I call this the personal elevation plan. Maybe you've heard of a PIP, a performance improvement plan. Yeah, that's like corporate speak for your ass is about to be fired. I prefer a PEP, personal elevation plan. This is a game plan we're gonna set out together in writing that clearly articulates, here's the gap, and here's what you are committed to doing over the next 30 days in order to level up and close this gap. So the second that we're spotting underperformance, we are immediately addressing it, creating clarity around what the gap is, transferring ownership to them to close the gap, and then supporting them in building a game plan so they can level up and close that gap over the next 30 days. So this is part one, is the managing up. When we've done our job as leaders, our team more often than not will surprise us. All they needed was clarity on where the gap is and a feeling of a supportive coach to support them in growing and closing the gap. And so the great part about the manage up or manage out framework is that more than half the time, you don't actually end up firing the person. You don't need to. The mistake that I used to make constantly is that I wouldn't have the conversation. I was so uncomfortable that I would procrastinate it, I would sit on it, I would let all of my own frustration and resentment bubble up and bubble up and bubble up until it reached a breaking point and we were at the point of no return. And what I realized is that that cost my business in a couple of ways. The first thing it did is that I had to show up frustrated and annoyed at this person for underperforming all of the time, even though they didn't even know that that was a problem and that was a way that I was feeling. So it hurt my own experience as a business owner, and it made me frustrated with people on my team all the time, completely unnecessarily. The second thing it did is that it brought down team performance. A players want to be surrounded by other A players. If we as leaders are letting underperformers stick around and stay on the team, what we're telling our A players, not with our words but with our actions, is that subpar performance is acceptable. Subpar performance is fine because clearly this person over here is doing a just all right job and I'm not doing anything about it. And what that ends up doing is it actually erodes the performance of our A players. It actually lowers the culture of excellence that we're trying to create on our team, and it sets a lower bar and a lower standard that our A players over time will actually fall and settle into. So you actually diminish the performance of other people when you allow for underperformance to exist in somebody else. And then the third cost is the most obvious one, which is I was having an underperformer in the role. It was costing my business to have this level of performance in that role when I needed this level. And the math of this is actually pretty brutal. 7 A players can do the same amount of work as 12 B or C players. What that means is that A players in an A player team is literally almost twice as productive as B or C player teams, meaning you can get twice the amount of revenue with the same group of people. For the same cost, the same labor, you can actually double the output of what your team is producing. And all of that creates profit. So by allowing underperformers onto our team, we are actually lowering the profit margin of our business, all because we are unwilling to have an uncomfortable conversation. So team performance is what I call a hidden profit center inside of your business, where just by leveling up our team, we are able to unlock and create profitability that was always hiding in plain sight in front of our eyes the whole time. And we're able to unlock that for free. There's actually 6 hidden profit centers inside of your business. So what me and my team did is that we built a tool called the Hidden Profit Finder. And in 10 minutes or less, it's a totally free tool, and it will walk you through your business and help you identify where right now is hidden profit leaking out of my business before I can reclaim it. So if you want that tool, it's totally free. The link is down in the description, and it's going to help you identify where and how to immediately start making your business more profitable. Okay, so now that we have tied team performance to profit, I hope it's clear why it is so essential that we learn this skill of manage up versus manage out in order to build a high performance team long term. So we've talked about step 1, right? Which is the manage up. Ideally, in that 30-day game plan, this person has now become aware of the gap, they do the work, they level up, their performance comes back into KPI, and that's the whole thing. We ran the process, it worked, it fixed itself, move on. Sometimes though, what we find is that underperformer is either unable to close the performance gap, like they literally just lack the skills and competencies in order to perform at the level that we need in the role. Okay, that sucks, but unless we have the time and the resources to pour into them, to invest a ton of training and time into them, they may simply not be the right fit for the role, and it's better that we know that and that they know that. So maybe they're unable to close the gap. Or what you also can see is that they are unwilling to close the gap. When I went through the process of leveling up my standards and leveling up my team, half of the team that we ended up churning out that year quit. They quit and they would say things like, Jhana, I miss the good old days. I miss how this company used to run. I don't like all this pressure. I don't like all this accountability. Where's all of this coming from? And if your team is saying that, I want you to translate that in your mind as them saying, I want to be in an environment where B or C level performance is acceptable. I don't want to grow, to level up, to be an A player. In which case, that's totally fine. That's brilliant. Thank you so much for telling me, because this is no longer the right working environment for you. So when you set this 30-day game plan, what you're doing is applying pressure. You're raising the bar and then holding them accountable to hitting it. A players in that environment will rise. A players were just looking for the opportunity to grow and to level up. B and C players will crumple under the pressure. They don't want it. And half the time, they will self-select out. They will literally quit before you have to fire them because they no longer want to work in a high performance, high pressure working environment. And again, when Leila first told me this, I literally didn't believe her. I was like, there's no way that actually works. And then lo and behold, members of my team started to quit. I absolutely could not believe it. And this is the final lesson that Leila taught me, which is that there is such a thing as good churn, right? There's good churn and then there's bad churn. Bad churn is when people have to quit or we have to fire them because we mismanaged the situation. We didn't hire correctly. We didn't onboard them correctly. We didn't manage them correctly. They did some giant fireable offense. This is bad churn. This is what we want to avoid. But there is also such a thing as good churn. Good churn is when people recognize that they are no longer the fit for the role, for the culture, for the working environment, or for the direction that you are trying to take the business. And they will self-select off the bus, or you will let them go under the shared understanding that, hey, this is actually no longer the right place for you to be. And it's what's best for both of us if we part ways here, as opposed to trying to keep you in a role or in a company where you're no longer happy, you're not fulfilled, or you're not set up for success to do a great job in your role. And this is the reframe that I had to learn to finally grow comfortable with letting people go. And this is my philosophy. This didn't come from Leila. I genuinely believe that our job as a leader is to build our company into a vehicle for growth. Growth for ourselves, growth for our clients, growth for our team. Our commitment to our team is that we're going to create an environment where they are able to achieve their goals, grow and level up, and be successful in the work that they show up and do every single day. And so then what happens if they are no longer able to grow, to to be successful, to meet the expectations of the company. It is actually unfair. I genuinely believe this. It is unfair to keep them in that role. It is selfish for us as leaders to allow our own emotional discomfort of having the hard conversation, hold that person back from going on to find a role where they can be successful, a culture where they are a fit, or a job where they can actually meet the expectations of the role. They deserve that. And it is selfish for us to try and keep them in a role where they are no longer a good fit. And so manage up or manage out sometimes does still end with a firing conversation. But when I started walking into that conversation from a place of genuine love and service, that I am doing this for you because you deserve to go on and be successful, and we deserve someone in the role who is truly set up for success to be in that role and be happy in that role. When that was the frame of the conversation that I walked in with, all of a sudden, those conversations were still uncomfortable. They were still hard, but they went so much better. They happened better, faster, easier, and oftentimes they ended with a hug. Like, I still get coffee every single month with some of the people that I have fired because we both recognized that it wasn't a fit anymore. It wasn't working out. And you know what? That's totally okay. But the best thing that we can do for both of us is to part ways, and here's how I can support you into stepping into the next chapter of your career. So manage up versus manage out. This was the framework that I learned from Leila Hormozi on how to course correct underperformance within the team, how to take any underperformance anywhere and either close that gap or help that person identify that they were no longer the right fit for the role or where the company was going. And the second that I learned this framework, it got me over the emotional discomfort and the procrastination that was holding me back from having the uncomfortable conversation and for doing what needed to be done to either manage up or manage out the underperformers on my team. What I learned from Leila is that these are the sorts of skills and processes that separate the good CEOs from the great ones. And of course, firing people is only one of those skills. I actually have an entire video breaking down how to run your business like a great CEO, pulling learnings and patterns from the hundreds of incredible multi-7 and multi-8-figure CEOs that I've gotten to work with. You can check out that full video right there so that you can continue your journey to level up into the CEO that you've always known you were capable of becoming. I will see you in the next video.